everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be telling you about 5 books I think you should read this summer. So first of all, I just want to say, usually this video would be my June wrap-up, reading wrap-up. I didn't read a single book in June. Not even one. 0 books for me. I just wanted to say that because that happens sometimes. And I know on the internet, it can seem like anybody who makes YouTube videos or book videos reads all the time. And that just doesn't happen. Especially like if you're a busy person, which I think we all are. Sometimes you just don't have time to read, and sometimes you're not in the mood to read. And that's just the way it goes. But hopefully these 5 recommendations for summer reading for you will put you in the mood to read and you'll enjoy them. I tried to pick books from a bunch of different genres and also ones that aren't like super basic. Not saying that Not saying that the really popular books right now are basic and you shouldn't read them, but just in the sense of I didn't want to just say, oh, you should read this and this and this, but you've seen that in every other summer book recommendation video, so you're like, okay, I already know that those books are something I want to read or not something that I want to read. So just throwing that out there. Also, because I don't know about you guys, but I cannot afford to just go out and buy all of these new books. That's a lot of money, and I know that a lot of people are really struggling with finances right now because of how bad inflation is, and yeah, it's not in everybody's budget to just go buy books, and there's nothing wrong with getting a book from your library. Also, I know for me, I live in a pretty rural area, and my library doesn't have all these new releases that are super popular, especially like TikTok books. You know, they might have a few of them on ebook form, but yeah, they don't have a huge selection or all of these super new popular books necessarily. So hopefully all the books that I recommend you'll be able to find kind of more at a local library. That way it is cheaper for you. So yeah, just wanted to put those things out there before I got into the recommendations. But let's get into it now. So my first recommendation is Anne of Green Gables by L.M. Montgomery. If you've watched like any of my book videos, you know that I love Anne of Green Gables. It's one of my favorites. Basically, it's about this young orphan girl who is adopted by a brother and sister, and you just kind of follow her journey as she goes to school for the first time and meets new friends and hates a boy in her class and stuff like that. And she is very feisty, very imaginative. What I love about it for summer is that there is just such beautiful imagery of nature in this book. The descriptions of nature are top notch. L.M. Montgomery knows how to do it. Just, you can picture it and it's just beautiful. Yeah, like I said, it's very imaginative. The main character is so much fun. You grow to love her. Sometimes you kind of are annoyed by her, but you just get to learn with her. It's very wholesome, and it leaves you feeling happy and hopeful, and it's just a very happy book. So that's why I think that it's a good summer one. The next book is very different, takes a very different turn, and that is Annihilation by Jeff Vandermeer. I'm just gonna read you what the description is from Goodreads because I think it's kind of hard to describe, so I'm just gonna read it to you. It says, Area X has been cut off from the rest of the world for decades. Nature has reclaimed the last vestiges of human civilization. The first expedition returned with reports of pristine, Edenic landscape. The second expedition ended in mass suicide. The third in a hail of gunfire as its members turned on one another. The members of the 11th expedition returned as shadows of their former selves, and within weeks all had died of cancer. In Annihilation, the first volume of Jeff Vandermeer's Southern Reach trilogy, we join the 12th expedition. The group is made up of 4 women, an anthropologist, a surveyor, a psychologist, who is the de facto leader, and our narrator, a biologist. Their mission is to map the terrain, record all observations of their surroundings and of one another, and above all, avoid being contaminated by Area X itself. They arrive expecting the unexpected, and Area X delivers, but it's the surprises that come across the border with them and the secrets the expedition members are keeping from one another that change everything. This book is a roller coaster ride. It is so intense. I read this book in one sitting because I had to know what happened. I was like sprinting through this novel. I actually haven't read the other books in the trilogy, but I need to because I loved the first one. It's very unsettling at some points, and it just has you on the edge of your seat because you are like, what is going on? Another thing that I really enjoyed about it, but I know some people don't like, is that the narrator is extremely unreliable. You have no idea what is real, what is happening, what is going on in her head, if it's happening in real life, if she's making it up, if she's lying to you on purpose. You don't know, and there is no resolution. You never find out. And so it is just it's very fast-paced, it's thrilling, and like Anne of Green Gables, but in a very different way, there are really cool descriptions of nature, but they're not necessarily like, oh, the nature is beautiful. It's kind of like the nature is scary. So I really liked it because it's not too scary. I'm a scaredy cat, so I guess you can take my word for it, whatever that means. It's not too scary, but it's very thrilling. So that's my second recommendation. My third recommendation is, again, very different genre, and that is Tuesdays with Morrie by Mitch Albom. And again, I'm just going to read you the summary overview from Goodreads. And it says, maybe it was a grandparent or a teacher or a colleague, someone older, patient, and wise who understood you when you were young and searching and gave you sound advice to help you make your way through it. For Mitch Albom, that person was Morrie Schwartz, his college professor from nearly 20 years ago. Maybe, like Mitch, you lost track of this mentor as you made your way and the insights faded. Wouldn't you like to see that person again? Ask the bigger questions that still haunt you. Mitch Albom has that second chance. He rediscovered Morrie in the last months of the older man's life. Knowing that he was dying from ALS, or motor neuron disease, Mitch visited Morrie in his study every Tuesday, just as they used to back in college. They rekindled their rekindled relationship turned into one final class, Lessons in How to Live. I love this book. It's kind of like a combo of self-help and memoir. Mitch Albom is telling you about his experiences with this college professor in the last days of his life, and he just has, his college professor Morrie just has such wisdom and so many insights, and the way that the book is set up is that you get to learn with the author. You get to learn more about this man's life and his beliefs, and I really liked it because it helps you see multiple perspectives on life, and it is very heartwarming. I also read this book in one sitting, and I would love to, I need to reread it. I would love to go through and take notes on things that I want to apply in my own life, because I think that there's just so much wisdom to be gained from this book. And in my opinion, summer is all about self-improvement, right? You're like getting yourself ready for the next school year, or I don't know, fall always feels like a restart to me, probably because of school. That's what I've been used to my whole life. But yeah, summer's just a time of growth, and what better way to grow than mentally, through learning. So yeah, that is Tuesdays with Morrie by Mitch Albom. The next book is The Ocean at the End of the Lane by Neil Gaiman. This book is incredibly whimsical. Again, I'm just going to read you the description because it is honestly really hard to describe I would have a hard time describing it. So here is the description from Goodreads. Sussex, England. A middle-aged man returns to his childhood home to attend a funeral. Although the house he lived in is long gone, he's drawn to the farm at the end of the road, where, when he was 7, he encountered the most remarkable girl, Letty Hemstock, and her mother and grandmother. He hasn't thought of Letty in decades, and yet as he sits by the pond, a pond she claimed was an ocean, behind the ramshackle of old farmhouse, the unremembered past comes flooding back. And it's a past too strange, too frightening, too dangerous to have happened to anyone, let alone a small boy. 40 years earlier, a man committed suicide in a stolen car at this farm at the end of the road. Like a fuse on a firework, his death lit a touch paper and resonated in unimaginable ways. The darkness was unleashed, something scary and thoroughly incomprehensible to a little boy. And Letty, magical, comforting, wise beyond her years, promised to protect him no matter what. Groundbreaking work from a master, The Ocean at the End of the Lane is told with a rare understanding of all that makes us human and shows us the power of stories to reveal and shelter us from the darkness inside and out. It is a stirring, terrifying, and elegiac fable, as delicate as a butterfly's wing and as menacing as a knife in the dark. I love this book. It is, like, seriously, whimsical is the word to describe it. Like Annihilation, it's pretty unsettling at some points and almost scary because you're thinking, like, how could this possibly be happening? And it's kind of a combination of a real world and fantasy. There's some fantastical realism, I guess you could call it, in it. I think it's a great representation of how you remember things from your childhood versus what actually happened. Like, you might remember them very differently, and maybe as a kid you come up with explanations to try and figure out why things happen the way that they do, even if it's completely different from what actually happens. But yeah, this is a pretty short read, and Neil Gaiman writes beautifully. He writes very descriptively, and I also, there's a motorcycle outside. This book makes me think of summer specifically because of the women characters in it. Letty Hemstock, the little girl, she's very magical, and so is her mother and her grandmother. And it kind of makes me think of, they're almost like fairies, like they're just kind of these magical beings, and that always feels very summery to me. But it's a very short read. Someone's trying to call me. Hello? Scam. What was I talking about? Anyway, that's The Ocean at the End of the Lane by Neil Gaiman. I lost all thoughts that I had. Neil Gaiman's a great writer. I need to read more of his books. It's very whimsical, very magical, kind of scary, kind of hopeful. It's a good read. My last recommendation for you is Anxious People by Fredrik Backman. Again, from Goodreads. From the #1 New York Times bestselling author of A Man Called Ove, another amazing book, by the way. A writer of astonishing depth comes with a poignant comedy about the crime that never took place, a would-be bank robber who disappears into thin air, and 8 extremely anxious strangers who find they have more in common than they ever imagined. Viewing an apartment normally doesn't turn into a life-or-death situation, but this particular open house becomes just that, when a failed bank robber bursts in and takes everyone in the apartment hostage. As the pressure mounts, the 8 strangers begin slowly opening up to one another and reveal long-hidden truths. First is Zara, a wealthy bank director who has been too busy to care about anyone else until tragedy changed her life. Now she's obsessed with visiting open houses to see how ordinary people live, and perhaps to set an old wrong to right. Then there's Roger and Anna-Lena, an IKEA-addicted retired couple who are on a never-ending hunt for a fixer-upper to hide the fact that they don't know how to fix their own failing marriage. Julia and Ro are a young lesbian couple and soon-to-be parents who are nervous about their chances for a successful life together since they can't agree on anything. And then there's Estelle, an 80-year-old woman who has lived long enough to be unimpressed by a masked bank robber waving a gun in her face. And despite the story she tells them all, Estelle hasn't really come to the apartment to view it for her daughter, and her husband really isn't outside parking the car. As police surround the premises and television channels broadcast the hostage situation live, the tension mounts and even deeper secrets are slowly revealed. Before long, the robber must decide which is a more terrifying prospect: going out to face the police or staying in the apartment with this group of impossible people. Rich with Frederick Bachman's pitch-perfect dialogue and an unparalleled understanding of human nature, Anxious People's whimsical plot serves up the unforgettable insights into the human condition and a gentle reminder to be compassionate to all the anxious people we encounter every day. I really love this book. I really like both of the Frederick Bachman's books that I've read. I love the way he writes. His books are very character driven. This is kind of like what's the genre called? Contemporary or literary fiction. Okay, that's what I was thinking of. It's literary fiction, and it's contemporary. So I haven't really read too many books in that genre before, but I really like this one because the plot kind of takes a back seat, and it is really just a look into each character. And you learn a lot about these people who are in this hostage situation, and you kind of learn lessons from them and learn lessons with them as they give advice to each other and get to know each other in this situation. And I think it's a really good look into how different people handle a situation. Everyone handles it differently. I think that this book it's very wholesome, which kind of, you think a hostage situation with a bank robber, wholesome might not be the first word that comes to mind, but it's very wholesome and it ends in a very hopeful way. And, kind of like the summary says, it makes you want to be more compassionate to anyone that you meet, because you learn about these characters and you learn about the struggles that they have in your life, and it's a reminder that everyone is going through something. And the biggest thing that someone has gone through is, each new thing is the biggest thing that person has gone through. So you might think like, oh, it's not that big of a deal, I've gone through way worse. But for them, that's the biggest thing that they've ever had to go through. And so you kind of, I guess it's kind of a lesson in empathy. And it's very humorous. Frederick Bachman has like a really kind of dry sense of humor. But yeah, I also read this book in one sitting. It's a common theme for these books for me. And it made me cry at the end of it because, yeah, you really just fall in love with these characters, even though they're all very flawed, and you might not understand what their reasoning is behind the things that they say and the things that they do. But I think it's just a great look into how everybody is different, and we all have things that we're going through. So yeah, that's my final recommendation for you. I hope that you want to read some of these books from my descriptions of them. I think that they are all really great books. I really enjoyed reading all of them. And I hope that you have fun reading this summer. Summer always makes me think of reading because of the summer reading challenges that they did at the library when you were kids. I don't know if your guys' libraries had those. I think it's kind of a pretty common thing. But that was always my favorite part of summer, was entering the summer reading challenge, and I was like, I'm gonna crush this reading challenge, I got this, and that was always my favorite thing as a kid, because I've always been a bookworm. So yeah, I hope that you found these recommendations helpful, and I hope that you have a great rest of your day. Bye!